While I was still working for Harley Davidson, I had a boyfriend in that town and we broke up. And I was devastated. And at night, I couldn't sleep. So I'd lay on the couch and I'd flip through the TV channels. And now I know this, but I didn't know that then, that almost every hour of the day, Tony Robbins would have his infomercial playing on television, no matter what time of day it was. So I started watching his infomercials and thought, I think this guy could help me. I think this is exactly what I need. So I didn't have any money at the time, so I went to the local library and I got some of his cassette tapes. I can't even believe they were cassette tapes, but I got cassette tapes and I would just listen to them over and over again in the car when I would go to my job at Harley Davidson. At lunch, I would put the cassettes in, I'd take notes. I was obsessed. It was just something about the way he talked about designing a life on your own terms. That's exactly what I wanted. And I was in this place where I didn't know exactly where I was supposed to land, so it was perfect for me. So that was my first introduction to Tony Robbins, cassette tapes at the library. So fast forward to actually applying for a job. Before I applied for a job there, I went to a Tony Robbins event, Unleash the Power Within. And it was an incredible experience, the whole fire walking and meeting new people. And really, one of the things he talks about is finding your purpose and knowing why you're on this earth. And that was something that I was really seeking. So I absolutely loved it. Then I went to another event, and I did not have the money to do this, but I was bound and determined to make my life better. And so I went to Date with Destiny, and that was another beautiful event. I loved everything about it. And so I thought, just kind of like with Harley, my dad had a Harley, we loved the environment, I should work there. Well, here I am at these events, I loved everything about it, I should work there. And so I applied for a job at the Tony Robbins Institute, and it's in San Diego. So I would have to move from Orange County, which is where I was living at the time, to San Diego. And they offered me a job. And at the time, I think it was around $30,000. And I think I was making about $50,000, $60,000 at my other job. And they said, but you get to travel the world with Tony. You get to go to the Philippines, to London, to Fiji, and you'll be working on the content that he does on stage. And working on content, I didn't even know what the word content meant at the time. That was very foreign to me, but I knew there was writing involved and creation involved, and I would be part of the creative department. And I thought that sounded amazing. And so I thought about it and I turned down the job. I said, I cannot take $30,000 when I'm making almost $60,000 now. I can't go back. It just doesn't feel right. And so I said no to the job, and I actually took another random marketing job in the meantime. And then I got a call and they said, we have a manager position opened up. It pays $60,000, which felt like tons of money for me. And you still get to travel, you still get to work on content, but you'll be managing the team that does so. And I thought, absolutely. And so there's something to be said about taking a pause. And just, if it doesn't feel right, going with your gut and saying, I'm just gonna wait. Because I didn't ever feel like the door was totally closed, and I just knew something else was gonna come around, and it did. So I became the manager of this creative team, and I literally had the most amazing experience of my life. So I worked for Tony for many, many years, got to travel the world, work on amazing projects. And there was one project that he created near the end of my 7 years where it was called the New Moneymakers. And he started introducing or interviewing internet marketers who were building businesses online. Now, this was a whole new world for me. I didn't know much about it, but I was fascinated what these people were doing. And they were from all different ages and definitely different markets and industries, but they were building businesses online. And that product that I got to work on was the first ooh, well, what's that? I don't know that world. So I was really fortunate that I got to work on the project. Fast forward to the last year I was with Tony, and he had a meeting in the San Diego offices. And what he did is he brought in a bunch of business owners who were building businesses online, from real estate to relationships to investing to everything in between. These were guys, and they were all men. These were guys that were building businesses online. Most of them had digital courses, memberships, masterminds. And so he brought them into the San Diego office. I remember it like it was yesterday. He had this big oak table, and they were all sitting around this big oak table, and I was called in to take notes. So very humbling. I wasn't even sitting at the main table. There were no women entrepreneurs, all men. I was at the side table and I was taking notes. And Tony went around and said, "Tell me about your businesses." Because at the time, he was wanting to get more into the online space. He had his own digital courses. And what I love about Tony is he always says, find those who are doing it well, whatever it is you want to be doing, and dissect it, learn from it, model from it. And he does what he teaches. And so he brought these guys in and said, "Tell me about your online businesses." And one by one, they went around and talked about their businesses. Now, in the moment, all I heard was freedom. They would talk about spending more time with their family. They would talk about the vacations they took. They would talk about calling the shots. They would talk about being creative. They would talk about their lifestyle more than their businesses or products. And my ears perked up and I thought, I don't even know what these guys do, but I want it. I want a piece of this. I wanted freedom for the first time in my life. So when I say that, here's where it comes from. My very first boss was my dad. Very strict dad, his way or the highway. And so I came out of the womb with a boss. And so for many, many years, he was my boss. Then I started to get jobs out of college, all bosses, most of them male. So I didn't know anything other than having a male boss for most of my life. And in that moment, I thought, I have never been free. I've never called the shots. I've never done anything on my own. I've always had a boss. But to back up a little bit, I enjoyed having a boss. I liked having that security. I liked being told what to do, and then I would do it better, and I would get awards and accolades and attagirls. I liked that. I liked to impress people. I cared deeply about what other people thought about me, too much, in fact. And so having a boss was security to me. I got a paycheck every 2 weeks, I had health insurance, and I knew what I was working on. And I got promotions. At that time, I was now the director of content. I was coming up that corporate ladder. So while I sat in that meeting, I thought, yeah, I value all of that, but what I want more than anything is to call the shots. It was the first time in my life that I realized I want to call the shots. At that point, when I realized I want freedom, I had no idea what I would do to be my own boss. Here I am sitting in a meeting with all these amazing entrepreneurs, not really understanding their business model, wanting a piece of it. And I looked to my best friend who also worked for Tony and I said, "You're a writer. You could be a freelance writer. You could go out on your own. You have something that you could make a business. I have nothing." I told her, I don't know any skill that would allow me to be my own boss. Like that felt very real in that moment. And she said, "You are wrong. You need to explore this." Thank God. And so for over about a year, for the next year, I decided that I was going to explore this. And I started taking courses. I started reading articles about entrepreneurship. I started to learn how to create your own digital course, what it means to have a membership. I just became a student in the morning, at nighttime, on the weekends. And then I started a side hustle. And that's when things got real for me.